This episode of the Commercial Real Estate Investor Podcast is brought to you by my CRE Accelerator Mastermind, where you'll get access to my step-by-step investment blueprint, essentially a library of resources on how to invest in commercial real estate. You'll get connected to a supportive community of other commercial real estate investors that are doing projects just like you. You'll get personalized coaching and feedback from me every step of the way. Go to www.crecentral.com to learn more. Welcome back to the Commercial Real Estate Investor Podcast. Today we are going live with a pretty interesting series that my buddy Jacob and I are kicking off. I bought a failing self-storage facility with Jacob. Jacob and I bought a failing self-storage facility. We're going to talk about why. Because not every asset that you want to buy in commercial real estate is stabilized. If there's a little bit of room for you to make some improvements, then that means that there's probably a lot of value that could actually be created. Jacob has been a buddy of mine for years. He's actually basically on the board of my company. I'm kind of on the board of his company as well through the Entrepreneurs Organization. We're in each other's forum. And Jacob owns a moving company here in Nashville. And so we're actually deploying a strategy that I really love when it comes to commercial real estate investing, which is kind of hacking the system, right? So instead of just coming in, hiring a self-storage management company, treating this just like a pure third-party investment, Jacob owns a moving company. So he's got a built-in clientele already that's going to be needing storage. He's been on you've been a member of the Tennessee Self-Storage Association for
a
years.
decade.
Yeah, for a decade.
Mm-hmm.
And he's been rocking and rolling with Sixth Man for over a decade as well, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So Jacob, that was a brief background on you, but tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, pumped about the opportunity to talk about this. We are in month one of a takeover of a property, day 20, if you will.
That's the most fun month.
Yeah, it has been story worthy, I think, so far.
Yeah.
As far as who I am and what I do, I own a local logistics company. We focus on household moving mostly, commercial projects as well. About 80% is residential, home to home. About 20% is commercial. We do a lot of different things for businesses, whether it's moving businesses from A to B or final mile. We really find a good sweet spot in large format delivery. So we take anything that takes two people to move, getting it across the threshold, like white glove is what is considered, or final mile services. But this is something I've been doing for clients for, let's say 2015, I started doing storage. We've been in a traditional model that is what you call vault storage, where you have these big wooden boxes. You fill them up and you stack them up 2 or 3 high. So this is our first endeavor into what you would call a self-storage.
Yeah, we're excited because this is something that he and I have been talking about doing for years, because it's just the next step for having a moving company, right? Is buying the places where you're actually going to be storing everything, because it's that vertical integration that everybody wants when it comes to their business, comes to real estate investing. So it's going to be hopefully the first of many. I mean, this is a model that we can go out and prove in many different markets as Jacob looks to expand his business outside of Nashville as well. So let's dive into a little overview of the site here first, so you can kind of get an idea of what we're looking at. So here it is up here in Madison. It's probably 12 minutes north of downtown Nashville. It's actually relatively close, about 2 blocks away from my Madison Station development. That's right here in the center of the screen there. That's a 32-acre site that I've got a partner on, and we are master planning it for about 2 million square feet of new construction commercial space. So one, we already knew that project was happening, so we were able to work on it. Jacob actually lives not too far up the road as well, so it's a very easy commute for him to get to work now. But Madison is a very quickly turning around part of town. It's kind of been forgotten about for the last 30 years, give or take. But from this location, you're only 12 minutes to downtown. It's actually closer to downtown Nashville than Green Hills is. So you can tell it's only a matter of time before it really starts to head this way, and it really already is. So zooming in on the site here, it's really it's several parcels. So it's this grass strip here on the left and this small building. How big would you say that building is? Like 1,200 square feet?
It's probably closer to 1,800.
1,800 square feet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that one is already kind of built out on the inside, but it doesn't look built out on the outside.
Yeah,
which could be used. We've talked about putting it up on a bay and doing photo shoots.
Yep.
And
Yeah, I
sorts of
think
stuff
there's a
like
lot of potential there. It is a blank canvas, and if you see that big building to the left of that grass parcel there, that's the new AT&T building. So what the small building is that we took ownership of is the old AT&T switch building. So literally has brick foundation, great bones, but it was only used to put operator switches into it. So it's kind of cool to see what the time travel of a very small brick building, and now next door is their their main traffic and where all the lines connect.
Oh, AT&T, how quickly they grow up.
Yes, we're watching them. That's for sure. I'm getting fiber, so here it
There
comes.
you go.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Madison,
that's
here we
right.
go.
Yeah, that's right. AT&T's right next door. So if we don't have good internet here, then what is the point? This silver roof line right here is all of the units. We've got 105 self-storage units in there. All but 10 on the outside right here at the bottom are actually climate controlled. It also does this little dog leg right here. So we own a good portion of this lot. You can see there's some vehicles parked there today. So kind of some, vehicle parking, industrial outdoor storage that's going on there. We were planning on keeping that, but Jacob and I were actually talking about other things that we might be able to do about that. So we'll get into that here in a little bit. But we bought it for $1.7 million. And here's where things get interesting. We started doing our due diligence, and it was tough for us to really understand why it was actually worth $1.7 million. I came closer to, it's probably 1.5, give or take, based on everything that the owner is giving to us, but they wouldn't negotiate. And sometimes that's just part of buying commercial real estate, is you're going to have to accept the price if you want to get the property. To us, it's actually worth way more than 1.7 because of the strategy that we're going to be deploying here, which we'll go into detail on today. But you can see here, it's got some signage out front. There's a little office right there. All of the units are kind of tucked in immediately behind the office. We actually bought this building too, so we do have a tenant that's in that space as well. So it's a nice little property on a side street there in Madison. Jacob, talk to us about finding the deal and kind of what originally drew you to this.
Yeah. Well, being in search to own the bones, I've been in Nashville market doing moving and storage for about 15 years. And that's just always been on the vision board of not paying rent to a landlord. And because of that, I, save LoopNet terms, and I get them to send me any self-storage in the state. I'm okay to go, even in Kentucky and a little bit of North Alabama, because of just how broad our network is. So it literally dinged me when it came available, because I'd already had my specialty property terms in there, show properties like this. So I get an email, it comes through. I think I caught it day one on the market. And I'm not sure what the timeline was, but, this has been in kind of our next steps. So it was pretty much a no-brainer to investigate it from then on. This is Madison. It gets a kind of a weird rep in Nashville. I think that's any fringe area anywhere. A lot of East Nashville rejects are out there. Our properties went, our rent went up every year.
Yeah, too expensive.
Yeah, and they kind of pushed us down Gallatin Pike there. But it being right in the back of my yard, I couldn't help but just go ahead and investigate it. So, LoopNet sends me an email. I think I kicked it over to you and said, hey, we got to check this out. And it maybe was a week or so before we're walking the property.
Yeah, we jumped right on it. I mean, it was a good opportunity. I think even at 1.7, it was potentially underpriced. Here's the thing. We, looking at the listing on Crexy, it's still available on there. It looks like it went live in June. We probably started working on it back then, but it took us until probably September for us to actually go under contract on it.
Yep.
It took a little bit. Y'all know I like to take 30 days off every year, December 15th to January 15th. So I try never to close deals at the very end of the year. This one, it was December 31st. It was literally New Year's Day when we were wrapping everything up, which is fine. It happens. I mean, sometimes when you find a good deal, it's worth to make that happen. And the good news about that is that we did a cost segregation study. You and I haven't even actually talked about this, or we're about to pull the trigger on a cost seg study. since we bought it on the last day of 2024, we get to take that depreciation in 2024, since the building was already in use, which is pretty exciting. If you're not familiar with the cost segregation study, it's really where a CPA slash, kind of building engineer comes in and says, hey, instead of writing everything off over 30 plus years, right? Because we all know HVAC units are not going to last 30 plus years, but that's how the IRS allows you to write them off. We're going to allow you to do accelerated depreciation over 5 to 7 years on a majority of these items. So we'll be able to take advantage of that in 2024. Here's where it gets fun. The occupancy as advertised and as given to us in the rent roll was 95%. Jacob.
Yeah, heck of a
what did it end up actually being?
heck of a policy. I mean, I'm 20 days into January. I think I'm pretty confident in saying that it is 66% full. Yeah. There are going to be some nuances. There's always going to be a few exoduses when this happens. New ownership. It gives people a reason to go, oh yeah, I forgot about my stuff over there.
Yep.
I need to get it out of there anyway. And here we are. I think that I'm going to say that that's probably where we're going to stay, and now we're going to start to trend back up, and we've already got some inquiries on the spaces too. So, the good with the bad. The good is 95% was definitely not true. We're at 66, 20 days into the year, and I've already got 2 or 3 clients that are wanting a piece of the property, 10 by 10, 10 by 20 spaces. So we'll probably take that 66 to 70 before February, and that's, something that I think is worthy of just being proud of. It's always going to be different. What they present and what is actual, it's always going to be different.
That's right.
It's just a matter of how much, and there's the gray area. So I think we can
you
at least
expect like 5 to 10 units to be a maybe or to cancel after you buy, but yeah, I mean a 30% discrepancy is pretty big.
Yeah, I would agree.
It's one of those things that you don't come across too often, but it feels like it was misrepresented by the sellers, maybe by the broker. And so it's a conversation we're going to have with the attorney. Who knows where that goes? Maybe it's not even worth fighting over, right? Because we've got bigger and better things to work on. I mean, the good news is we think that we'll be relatively stabilized by the end of this year.
Yeah.
Self-storage rents up 3 to 5% of the units per month, right? Give or take. So, I mean, if we're renting up 3 to 5 units a month, that's basically 3 to 5%, then we'll be there by the end of this year.
Yeah, I think the big challenge that I'm facing that, clearly I'm fit to do is taking on the reputation of the property. I mean, it is not in good standing, let's say, right now. So I think just by doing a few things like answering the phone and getting back to people, we'll see our 3.4
We've got
stars.
3.4 stars on Google. I mean, and almost all of them for the past couple of years are 1 stars. They all are just like, do not rent here. This place is garbage, horrific. You can kind of tell. So it sold in 2020.
Yeah.
And you can tell when it really started to go downhill, because if you go back like 6 years ago, you're starting to get all these 5-star reviews, and then all of a sudden a year ago is when you start just getting loaded with 1 stars. The owner, so this is one of the strategies that I like to use in commercial real estate, which is just an operational value add. So Jacob and I raised capital from investors to do this deal. We have, I think, 4 or 5 investors in the project, and as well as putting some of our own money into it as well. And we didn't budget anything for capital expenditures. Now, of course, we have money. We have over $70,000 set aside for anything that happens. But we didn't say, hey, day one, we need to come in here and paint this, or day one, we need to come in here and build a new building or redo the parking lot or anything like that that's really capital intensive. What we said is, hey, let's just run it better. If we don't touch anything, and we actually answer the phones, we actually give the self-storage unit to the people that are wanting to get self-storage units, we can significantly increase the value of this property.
Yeah, I think that, in doing my diligence over the last few weeks, what I've realized is there is a pretty high demand for what we've got. And all we've got to do is be able to get ready to deploy that stuff. I will say some of the positive sides of the takeover has been a lot of the automation and processes were put into place to not the previous owner, but the owner before that. They really created some systems in place to let it be quote unquote as passive as it could be. Self-storage, I think there's a big misconception of like passive income.
That's across commercial real estate as a whole, or real
Yeah.
estate. It's like, oh, it's just mailbox money.
I get my little eyebrow goes up when I hear that. I think you'd be foolish to assume that's the case. Now, I'm sure there's some groups out there that have really dialed that in and are on a whole nother level. But for a property like this, that is kind of it's in a downtown adjacent area, you're going to have some presence. And I think that goes back to the value that we're going to be bringing on to the next year.
That's right. So, guys, as we're going through this project, we'll be updating you monthly on everything, right? Whatever questions you have on what it's like to buy a self-storage facility. This is my first one. I mean, I've brokered deals for other people. I've been very involved in self-storage, but this is actually our first self-storage takeover. We are self-managing, so there's probably going to be some lessons learned on that one as well.
Oh yeah,
and it's been a lot of fun, and y'all know I'm an open book. So whatever questions you guys have on that, or leasing it up, or turning it around. I mean, we were having a discussion the other night. This wasn't something that we had planned on doing, but we were looking at doing these. Well, why don't you tell them? I mean, we're looking at other ways, other income streams.
Yeah, I think what I like about this property is it's got a little bit of everything. So we've got a parcel with a flex space, and the tenant obviously is already in there, and they're from what we can tell is going to stay. But there is a flex space parcel of it. The other parcel is literally a vacant building with a blank slate. So there's some opportunity there. And then inside of the storage unit walls, we have 4 buildings that are climate controlled, a 5th building that's not climate controlled, and probably 7 parking spaces that are right now being rented to RV and kind of like box truck size clients. And what we're looking at is repurposing that entire space, throwing some gravel down, getting some leveled out areas, and adding units. The same that the previous owner did, which was add 10 units on the back line. They did that by containers. So they dropped a few containers. Obviously, they put flashings and gutters and things you need to do for the water. But I mean, essentially, that is what we're looking at. Is looking at the square feet, zooming out. What's the footprint opportunity? And I mean, some quick math. I was looking at on one side of the property. I think we could add 24 10x10s pretty simply. And then on the other side of a property, we could add about 16 10x10s pretty simply. And you do the math on the market there. I mean, I think, for round numbers, it's $100 each. But if we add 40 units to a already operating property, I mean, there's some significant upside.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, we would expect in this area for these types, so like for us to be in the 60% range for occupancy is incredibly low. Right, 95% is realistic. 90 to 92 is probably where you're really going to be. So, even if we assume 40 units at $100 a month, right, that's $4,000 a month at 85% occupancy. So that brings us down to $3,400, and then we're not really going to have additional expenses on a monthly basis because they don't have power, Correct. They don't have water.
Correct.
It doesn't cost us anything to add them into our system, right? So all of the infrastructure is already there. So on an annual basis, that adds $41,000, so $40,800 in additional income on the property, and it would cost us less than that to buy the units.
Oh yeah,
right. So it's kind of a no-brainer. You think about that, like if you've got a property that has some vacant space, you might be able to monetize it with these types of little shipping container storage units like what we've got here. I mean, they literally bring them in on a truck. It looks just like a normal self-storage unit. They just come in 2s and 4s or whatever. They'll drop it down, and you basically put it online. It's ready to go.
I think another piece of this that I was unaware of getting into it is with vehicle storage, at least in the state of Tennessee, there is a lot more hoops to jump through. Let's just say somebody stops paying their bill. You actually have to take on expense for the tow truck. You actually have to take you have to get it off your property at your dime and, obviously get the police involved and go through those steps.
And for $50 a month, it's not worth it.
Correct. So, there may be a headache on the back end of some of those parking spaces that we were unaware of. and if we could get, just roll it into an integration of what we're already doing, and have some outdoor storage units, I think that's probably going to be the direction. Obviously, we've got to, sharpen our pencil and make sure it all makes sense before we start moving things around. But I do see that that's definitely our potential to grow in that side that's not being fully utilized yet. Now, the sense that we'll dropping containers and renting it out for the same amount, we kind of know it's a different client, right? Folks that want self-storage that is climate controlled is going to be a total different client than somebody who's okay to store their stuff in a non-climate controlled. Typically, it's going to be dictated by the term they're dropping their stuff. Yeah. If they're in between or they're going abroad for the summer or doing things like that,
they don't care.
They don't care. They just need a place to park their items. And, we kind of are aware that obviously it's going to bring a little bit less of a ticket in terms of pricing.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, the great thing about this, again, you can do this on just about any property as long as it's zoned. Mm-hmm. Drop more units like that. If you're bringing in another $40,000 a year to your bottom line, even at an 8% cap rate, right? Like, let's be super generous and say it's only worth 8%. That's $510,000 in value for a $30,000 investment.
Yeah.
We just made $470,000.
Yeah.
Like, I will spend that money all day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's how you really make these projects make sense. I mean, Jacob and I were looking at that, and we're like, okay, well, we had sold our investors initially on a 5-year timeline. If we end up spending the money to get those units and get even more tenants in there, add that much more value, we might be done in 2 years.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And that's where everybody starts to get really excited, right? We get excited because the project finishes faster. The investors get excited because the project finishes faster. The bank gets excited because we've paid them back their, you know what I mean? Like, everybody wins in a situation like that. Kyle's saying, what's up, guys? What's going on, Kyle? Appreciate you joining in. Dylan is saying, great live. Appreciate it, man. I love doing these kinds of things. This is a lot of fun. Any questions that you guys have on self-storage facilities, on this takeover, on things that are going on, let us know. Dan, what's going on, dude? Appreciate you jumping in. He's saying, hey, Tyler, that's a crazy discrepancy with the rent roll. It is pretty wild. Was it a similar story with the financials you got, and or how did that impact your valuation? Do you still feel like it was undervalued? It's a great question. Yes, the financials also showed that it was a pretty attractive deal too. So that's one thing that we're going to have to sit down and figure out, right? Because we're in the middle of takeover. And when you take over properties that have tenants in place, it's always an absolute mess, right? It's always a mess. I mean, Madison Station was a mess. I'll tell you guys, 2 blocks away, I spent over $30,000 on legal fees just trying to understand the leases that were in place, because some of them were 30 years old. They were missing pages. Some of them were scanned in upside down and out of place and in somebody else's lease. I mean, it was the wildest thing you've ever seen.
Yeah, and this one's comical, man. I mean, you remember when we got the keys, it's like a time capsule.
Yeah.
It looks like something from 10 years ago.
Yeah.
That was just kind of left. And
there's like U-Haul like company posters in there from like the 1990s.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe we can get something on eBay for those.
That's right.
I mean, I think that the value is always, at least from my perspective and your perspective, it's going to be different, right? A guy who owns a moving company, who's doing this type of work day in and day out and growing a brand, it's going to be a lot more valuable to me because I'm in a unique position. A guy who, like on your end, who's sourcing property deals and looking at it that way, it's going to have a totally different perspective. And I think that, really we'll know for sure how sour that start of this deal was by the year end, I think, and we look forward to telling everybody about it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's definitely, I think for the most part, I mean, what was kind of funny is I a few of the days I'm over there the first of the year, people are literally running up to my car saying, hey,
help us.
Hey, are you the new guy? And it's like, so you kind of get a sense of just like how neglected it was.
Yeah. The funniest part about this, I told Jacob this when we were in the middle of buying the deal. I think I had just announced the capital raise on Instagram and shared a picture of the property, and somebody that was following me DM'd me and said, hey, I've got a unit there. I haven't been able to get a hold of management for over a year. Can you help us? And I was like, give me a week.
Yeah.
We will own it in 1
week.
week.
Quite frankly, we're still going through that.
Yeah.
There's still a couple of what I would call customer concerns and inquiries, like just as simple as, can I get a light changed by my unit?
Yeah.
So, I mean, look, got a reputation-based business. You better believe that we'll take this pretty serious, and it start to gain some traction and rebuild the trust around what we've got out there.
That's exactly right. Yeah, and we're actually going to keep, or at least at this time, we're planning on keeping. Like the interesting thing about buying a self-storage facility, buying a car wash, or a hotel, you're buying the business with it. And so we have the Google My Business with all of those 1-star reviews.
Oh yeah,
That's a conversation that we've had. It's like, should we shut this down and change the name of the business and go with a new approach, or should we keep it? Because Madison Self Storage has a good name, that's good SEO, and just go respond to the 1-star reviews of, hey, we're under new ownership. We would love to take care of you if you give us another chance.
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes when you just respond to those reviews, people because I see that.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go in and I'll look at the one. Who cares how many 5-star? What's the 1-star review and how did you respond?
Yeah.
If there's a good response on there, I'm like, you know what? They handled it the right way.
Yeah.
This person that left the 1-star is probably crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. I think
Not that these people were crazy. This was actually very poorly managed.
No, yeah. It's just I literally think, look, a lot of folks have various things they got going on, and this was not a priority of the owner, right?
Right.
I don't know that. I haven't talked to him, but I can just tell.
You can just tell.
Yeah, that's all that happened here. So it'll obviously be a priority on us because look, we're gonna rush to the finish line, and that 5 years we can turn it into 2 or 3 and repeat this. I think that's what's got everybody excited.
Well, and here's the thing too: if you buy real estate in the right area, and you just wait long enough, it's gonna be worth something. The previous owner screwed everything up, in my opinion. He did everything wrong by the book. He owned it for 3 years. What did he buy it for?
I'm not sure. I know
Let me see if I can pull
yeah,
it up.
I think you can see that, but I do know like at least part of the story was so 2 owners ago they bought it at the auction block and added value, took it from about similar story, 60% occupancy all the way up to about 95%, and look, they life kind of shifted and they added value and they made a transaction and got out of the deal. So I think if it can happen in 2017 in Madison, Tennessee, I know we can do it in 2025.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So looking at it, we paid $1.7 million for it, right? He paid $1,230,000, so he made roughly $470,000.
Mm-hmm.
Now minus expenses and commissions and fees and whatever, $470,000 in 2 years.
Yeah.
He actually bought it in 22.
Yeah.
So he did everything wrong and still profited. That is the power. Like, you don't necessarily have to know what you're doing as long as you buy in the right spot.
Sure.
It's so powerful. That's for sure. So Jacob, talk to us about kind of next steps. Once you've kind of gotten, like, how long do you think the takeover is going to take? And what does that actually look like on a day-to-day basis? Are you calling these people? Are you emailing them? How's that actually look?
Yeah, a lot has been kind of pulling the yarn ball, right? Just you would think simple tasks like getting utilities switched over, even that is a lift on some of this stuff. But I think January is all about just doing diligence around what we have to do to get the operations intact. And then February and March, we're going to have all the outreach done and more than likely bring on more clients. I think we've got a couple in a holding pattern, quite frankly, just because we're not confident that we can start on the right foot. But the way I see it is we'll probably get to February, start to open up some occupancy and bring in some of the newer clients that will actually be our first. And then in March, we got to get out there and do some upgrades. And it's not like anything of a heavy lift other than just some sweat equity to put in, clean the property up, put some fencing up, some various areas, and give it a little bit better curb appeal, I think that like by the spring, we'll really have turned this ship around in terms of the reputation and the trust will start to be built. And yeah, there's really no reason by mid-year we can't get to our mark of, okay, we've got our rent rolls back to 93%. Okay, let's see how we're going to grow our unit base. And, is that the container route? Is that a couple of different avenues? I really do think that's a pretty soon decision that we're going to start to pull the trigger on.
That's right. There's so much with this deal that's just an easy fix on the operations side. The units are underpriced.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
They're under leased because nobody was answering phones. So it's like, okay, let's raise prices and let's answer phones.
Yep.
It's so easy to just do that. And then you think about adding 30, 40 more units. Well, we've got 105 now. That's an increase of 30 to 40% on our NOI alone, just from those, right? And so, we bought it with the understanding that it was a 7% cap rate. It probably was not.
Yeah.
But again, if we're able to get it to, increase our NOI by $30,000 to $40,000 more a year, sign, a market rate lease on the flex building next door. We actually have 2 flex buildings on site. So sign market rate leases for both of those. Then, there's a chance where we could more than double the net operating income in about 12 to 24 months.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think
it's rare to find an opportunity like that.
Q1, we really we're trying to, scrub everything basically and it's a keep and discard kind of moment where there's a handful of things that the previous ownership was doing that we're going to keep, and then there's a lot of stuff that that we're throwing out operationally, and then as far as like hey, we're open and we're ready for business. I think honestly by mid-February we'll have confidence that all our processes on how we're answering the phone, who's over there at what times, what the customers can expect. We don't want to go start with false promises. So we're just going to be timing that out kind of right in the sweet spot and we're getting there. Probably the next 30 days we'll kind of feel confident to say, all right, let's bring on our first client that's our client into the place. But, I've got my mop out and, the rest of this month is kind of getting it to a normalized situation.
That's it. That's all it takes. Sometimes just getting your hands dirty. John is saying nice. Never heard of these. Cool. I was sharing on the screen the Boxwell self-storage units, which are really, really cool. They're portable self-storage units. So, you order Boxwell and they'll just come and drop them off, right? They come on the back of a truck. That's what, there's a lot of different brands out there that do that. This just happened to be the one that has the nicest visuals for me to show you guys as to what they look like.
Yep.
Which, hey, that makes a difference. So, if you're interested in that, go check them out. These types of units are more expensive than if you had a standard self-storage building just manufactured and built on site. But they're mobile, right? So that is the big pro for those is, hey, if it's something temporary, right? Like maybe you bought a vacant lot and you're just trying to find a way to monetize it while you're waiting for land prices to go up so you can flip it, or maybe you want to redevelop it at some point. These are a great unit to just drop there because you can pick them up and take them with you whenever you decide to do that.
Oh yeah. That's a very specific sector of the storage business, and I definitely see many ways that something like this could add some value to what we're doing over here.
Yeah, it's pretty cool how they do it. I've looked into these guys before. We actually almost started doing this at our property out at Peerless Mill, but we decided just based on cost alone, let's just go ahead and build more permanent structures. So awesome, guys. Well, there you have it for our takeover of a failing self-storage facility. This has been fun. We'll keep this going every month. So stay tuned. We'll see you guys in the next one. This episode of the Commercial Real Estate Investor Podcast is brought to you by my CRE Accelerator Mastermind, where you'll get access to my step-by-step investment blueprint, essentially a library of resources on how to invest in commercial real estate. You'll get connected to a supportive community of other commercial real estate investors that are doing projects just like you. You'll get personalized coaching and feedback from me every step of the way. Go to www.crecentral.com to learn more.